Good afternoon. I'm Evan White, Public Relations Manager with EmployerBridge, and joining me now is Joni Biley, the Chief Workforce Analyst with EmployerBridge. Joni, how are you today?
I am great, Evan. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It is great to chat with you. And the reason we're here, for those who are new to our program, is we're here to talk about the monthly jobs report that was released last week from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and talk about just kind of the world of labor as it stands right now. Joni, if you would, just speak to why this is such an important indicator for so many.
Well, it is interesting. This report, which is released the first Friday of every month, always has all eyes on it. Economists, Wall Street, investors, they want to know what's happening in the job market. The labor market is one of the most important economic indicators to really show the overall health of the economy. Are employers, adding to their payrolls? Are we starting to see those numbers slide? What's happening with wages? What sectors are hiring? So, this report, which we get once a month, does certainly get a lot of attention. And the report that we received just last Friday is actually the last employment situation report that will be released for 2023. So a lot of attention always on these reports, Evan.
Certainly. And the reason, again, we're doing this obviously is to dig into the numbers, but also take a look at the story behind the numbers, because there certainly is a lot there. With your experience over 20 years as an executive in staffing, there's a lot that we want to be able to get into regarding this last report. And really that week, there was a lot of data released. You have the ADP report, you have the JOLTS report, and then, as we mentioned, the BLS report. For those who are watching us here on LinkedIn, you have the opportunity to ask questions to Joni. Just drop them in the comment section and we'll get to those at the end. We are going to keep the brief. It's about 15 minutes. So before we get too deep into this part of it, let's pull the brief up. We'll take a look. It's a fairly short presentation starting off here, and we're going to dive right in to some of the key statistics. Again, this is from the the BLS report from on Friday. You've got right here the unemployment rate. You've got the labor force participation rate, wages, and jobs added. Joni, if you would, take us through each one of these and what stories you saw from these numbers.
Yeah, no, great question. It's always interesting, right? When this report comes out, we see the headline numbers first, and that's going to determine even how the markets sometimes respond, to this data. So the headline numbers were rather positive. We saw 199,000 jobs created, and unemployment actually ticked down from 3.9% to 3.7%. So as you kind of dig into these numbers, you have to say, okay, well, what does that all mean? Because it looks pretty good from the outside. Unemployment did go down for a great reason. We actually saw that more people are actually participating in the overall labor force. That number actually ticked up by almost over 500,000 people. And then what we also saw in the household survey was that almost 750,000 additional people were employed in the month of November. So the size of the population is growing, more people are participating in the workforce. So a lot of good numbers there. But then when you look at that growth of 199,000, we need to kind of dig into where that growth is actually occurring. What sectors are adding to the payroll? That side of the equation, Evan, I wasn't as excited about. And you can see from the slides here, most of the growth really came from three main sectors. We saw the government added 50,000 jobs. Healthcare was very strong, added 77,000 jobs. And then leisure and hospitality added 40,000. So overall, the growth that we're seeing in the US right now is really in those three main sectors. What's concerning is that we are seeing some job losses in many other sectors. So for example, temporary help, which is near and dear to our hearts, actually saw a loss of over 13,000 jobs. The professional and business service sector actually saw a loss as well. And then retail had a large loss. So we have an interesting jobs report here in that the headline numbers are pretty strong, but it's not across the board. It's a very mixed report. Some sectors are performing better than others.
The last number that's on the presentation there just a second ago, it was 28,000. That was manufacturing, but that was from the auto workers, something that we've talked about quite a bit. They came back. It also didn't offset the losses from the previous month. So manufacturing coming back, but not as much as maybe some would have hoped.
Yeah, unfortunately, we would have loved to have seen a stronger number. I always love to look at manufacturing and construction. I feel like that's the heart, right, of our economy. Even though we've moved more to a service-based economy, we want to bring jobs back in construction and manufacturing. Neither sector really performed that well. The only reason we did see those jobs in manufacturing was because the strike was over and people were coming back from the prior month. But that is certainly a sector that we will be watching. You know, we're talking about there could be a renaissance of manufacturing in the United States in the future, but we haven't seen those jobs really return. And we will be watching that in 2024.
And maybe a little bit further out with that, but hopefully soon. As we take a look at, you mentioned just kind of an overview. You've got the household and the establishment survey. Can you break down for us what you saw in the first and then the second in terms of what was encouraging and then maybe what might be of concern?
Yeah, I think, well, when we look at that household survey, you know, I was really concerned in the prior month. So we always get the numbers, obviously, a month in arrears. So we're looking at the November data. The October data was very concerning. We saw 350,000 people kind of opt out of the workforce. But November, we saw a big swing to people coming back. So that's very positive. We're seeing labor participation tick up. Prime age labor participation really is at an all-time high. So people want to work. They want to participate. We also know that it still is a pretty good job market, even though it might not be as strong as it was 2 years ago or a year ago. We still have more open jobs. We have 8.6 million open jobs and about 6.3 million unemployed workers. So there's more jobs than there are unemployed people. So we're still in a very good job market and a good, you know, economic condition, but it's just not as strong as it was previously. If we look at the establishment survey, you know, I do think that it is great to see leisure and hospitality jobs continue to remain strong. In fact, most of those jobs were even in like restaurants and, you know, bars. It does show that, you know, the consumers, the American, you know, economy, they're out there and enjoying life, right? We were joking a little bit that, you know, the jobs are either in, you know, leisure and hospitality or healthcare. So hopefully people are staying healthy, but out there having fun. But we need to see some of these other sectors come back. Professional business services, retail is going to be very interesting to watch because we're not seeing, you know, the spike in retail even during this holiday season. We're hearing consumers are spending money, but those jobs have really switched from retail over to logistics and transportation. So you don't have a lot of retail workers, and that sector has been struggling a bit. So a little bit of a mixed review, again, Evan, in that establishment survey. You know, the jobs are in government, leisure and hospitality, and healthcare. We certainly want to see more jobs in many of the other sectors to really give us that strong, you know, employment labor market for 2024.
Thankfully, only part of that story is told as it relates to the rest of this year and the holiday shopping season. So hopefully when we talk again in January, that will have been a little bit different. We can make up some ground.
Yeah.
So as we look at the next part of this, I'm just curious to hear some of your key takeaways, any other ones that you want to go forward here, and then we can go into some predictions.
Well, I think one of the things we are seeing is that wages, you know, continue to remain pretty steady. We've seen wages increase over the past few years. Certainly being in a strong job market, it gets very competitive. Employers are having, to pay a bit more. We're expecting that that's going to kind of flatten out. Wages are still up year over year, but not expecting, tremendous increases, in those areas. The other thing that we're watching is just kind of like the average hours worked. That did tick up slightly in this last report, which could point to some productivity gains, which would be very good. But again, overall, still a good job market. I know people question that sometimes when, you're hearing of layoffs and, it's not as robust as it was 2 years ago. When we look at 2021 on a monthly basis, we were averaging 600,000 jobs, created. And then 2022, the US economy averaged about 400,000 jobs created. And if you look at where we are in 2023, it's just a little over 200,000. So that's why I try to let people know, yes, we are seeing a softening in the job market. It is trending down the past few years, but we are still seeing jobs created every single month. And, though some sectors, as I've mentioned here, are performing better than others, this still is a pretty good job market to be out there and looking for work.
Wonderful. And as we look at it, this is an opportunity for folks. Any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section there, and we will get to them here on air. There's a little bit of a delay because of the streaming, but we will get to those as we're able to here today. But as folks are maybe thinking about some of those questions, would love to hear your thoughts on productivity, because we know that was up a little bit as well. I know that AI automation may factor into that too. Didn't know if there are any trends you're seeing there that you wanted to get to here.
Yeah, well, it is great to see productivity moving in the right direction. And I think that's something that we are going to be talking a lot about in the new year, and how AI and robotics are only going to impact that. Certainly, we're seeing it in all sectors. There is the expectation that AI will certainly help all of us, right, do our jobs better and faster, more efficiently. Depending on the industry, that you're in, it certainly can impact it differently. But I do think that we are going to be seeing trends of productivity increases based on what we're hearing coming out of, AI and robotics. And it's coming at us fast and furious. So we all need to embrace it and figure out, how do we work with it? I was talking to a group of recruiters recently, and, some people get very concerned. Is this going to replace my job? Will I have a job? And I would encourage everyone, you have to embrace the technology, because it's only going to help you do your job better. And recruiters in the future, and this could happen can apply to many different positions. But if you embrace the technology, if you embrace and learn how to leverage it so that you can be more productive, you will be better off than people that try to resist it and say, oh, it's not really there. I think there's a lot of people that tend to think that it's just going to go away, but I can assure you it's not going to go away. We need to learn how to leverage it to be more productive in all that we do.
We have a question, Joni, to share with you from one viewer here. Michael's asking about the average hours worked going up, and Michael asking where they were previously, and it looks like where they are now. Maybe your expectations of where they may be going in the next month.
Yeah, that is definitely a metric that we love to watch. Certainly when we see the average hours worked ticking up, we are seeing a more productive and also engaged workforce. We also know that based on the inflationary climate, economic climate that we're in, people are wanting to work more hours to make more money because things are more expensive in today's environment. So those numbers did tick up slightly. And that actually points to a very good sign for our economy. When we see average hours worked going down, obviously it shows that maybe employers don't need their employees as much. The demands aren't as strong. So certainly that was pointing in the right direction for this past month.
Appreciate the question. And if anybody else has another question, we'd be happy to get to it. This is a chance to ask Joni some questions. We're focusing here, the EB Economic Brief, on the Bureau of Labor Statistics monthly jobs report, which came out last Friday, but we're also looking at some of the other key indicators that came out. Joni, anything on the JOLTS report, the ADP report that you want to share?
Yeah, on the JOLTS report, and we get that report on a monthly basis as well, there were declines certainly in job openings. We did see actual job openings fall down to about 8.6 million open jobs, which is less than the numbers they've been hovering at over, the past few months. So that does show that there could be a bit of a softening. But I would expect that we may see that number pick up in January. And the reason I say that is this time of year, if it's not a holiday or a peak season, many employers tend to say, okay, it's, November, December, I'm not going to add to my payrolls right now because we're in the holiday season. But we are seeing them optimistic about hiring in the new year and in first quarter. So I will be watching those numbers. If we continue to see declines in first quarter, that is going to be more concerning for the overall job market. But maybe we will see it, tick up, which would certainly show there's a little bit more of a boost of confidence in hiring across the board.
What about interest rates? There was some reporting around what this means as it relates to the interest rates and the chance or the possibility that they might be seeing a cut come January. This report, at least from the reporting around this, making it look like that would be further off. What is your expectation for interest rates and when we could see them come down?
Yeah, I know. I feel like we all want to get our crystal ball out, right, to see what the Fed is going to do. Are they going to hold on interest rates, raise them, cut them? From everything I'm reading, based on the latest data, there is some optimism that maybe we could see interest rates cut in Q1 or into Q2 of next year. So, I guess my guess is as good as anyone else's here, but based on the data, I'm probably a little more optimistic that we could see some easing into the end of Q1 of next year.
And we'll get to one more question and then wrap things up here. As we look at it, Cindy had asked us, or asked you, Joni, how do you feel remote work or going back to the office has affected productivity?
Well, that is a great question, Cindy, because a lot of people are talking about that right now. It is kind of a hot topic. Many employers are looking for ways to bring employees back into the office. And maybe it's not full-time, maybe it is kind of a hybrid schedule. But we are seeing a little bit of a movement in employment trends that companies want to get their employees back in the office so that they can collaborate together and have that teamwork. But there's a whole nother side to that camp where we're seeing employees are still really interested in working virtual, remote. Many of them don't want to return back to the office. Many of them have even moved maybe from, out of state or different locations from where their job was based, and they won't be able to come back into the office. So my prediction is we will see kind of a blend. I do think you're going to see a movement where employers are going to want to bring people back at some kind of hybrid schedule, maybe 3 days or 2 days, in the office if possible. But I don't see that it'll be mandated. I don't think we'll ever get back to where we were, kind of before the pandemic. We're kind of living in a new world of people working remotely and virtually, and it is working. And I think that's here to stay as well.
All right, Joni, we'll leave it there. We appreciate everybody who tuned in here. This is the EB Economic Brief, and we'll be back again next month to break down the BLS numbers once again. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan.